All right, all right, all right. I would like to thank everybody for joining us. I have a special guest, a very special guest, Stan Richards, aka Stan the Man, DMV Stan, hardest working man in the DMV, right? Entrepreneur, CEO, founder of Positive Black Man Coalition, author from Bust to the Bentley, philanthropist, CEO, and founder of the Richards Group. Each year, donate school materials back to kids in the area he grew up in, Brentwood, Northeast. Project called 1335. Stan, just want to give you a little background before we get started. I started this podcast to create a talking point of a journey of a man for men, to bring down the barriers that we have that is created by us, right? And I didn't create this podcast to negatively impact our brothers or sisters. This podcast created to uplift everybody. Um, I've been praying about this for a long time. My next journey in life. As we get to certain sections in our lives, sometimes we are uncertain what's our next journey. So I've been praying about this for a long time as I reach retirement with the Transit Authority. I've been working with them for 35 years. So I've been praying every day about it. One day I was at church service, and Pastor Manny, I'll never forget it, it's part of my testimony now. He was preaching and he spoke to my heart. You know how sometimes you can go to church and the pastor is speaking directly to you?
Mm-hmm.
Was speaking directly to me, brother. And at that particular time, it was very clear because God sometimes uses people as a vessel to open you up. And he used him as a vessel to open me up. And at that particular time, after service, as we were fellowshipping afterwards, I immediately came up with my podcast. Nobody knew about it. I exposed it right then and there with the parishioners and then with my family. And everybody was excited about this journey. So I want to say thank you for joining me. The Journey of a Man podcast was created for men to talk about a journey in life, which ultimately determines who we are or will become. The obstacles we face are real and often will derail us from our destinations. This podcast gives us a platform to express ourselves about the journey we have experienced, our upbringing, relationship, marriages, fatherhood, careers, finances, spirituality, divorce, co-parenting, and hopefully bridging our support for one another while respecting and uplifting other men and women. The trajectory of men must change. We can create a pathway to success, brother.
Yep.
That's why I have opened this up because you have created a pathway for a lot of people. I've seen your journey. I know what your journey is all about and what you've experienced. But before we get started, I have a special presentation for you. Sit back and enjoy. The Journey of a Man with your host, Dre Jordan. The beginning until the end, brother.
Hey Stan, it's me, your sister right here. I reflect back when you were a kid. The first thing came to my mind was determination. You've always had that determination to succeed, but I believe over the years what helped you, a contributing factor was you've also had such empathy and compassion for others, to be there for others. So I think that was a motivating factor on you accomplishing so much that you have accomplished over the years and succeed. And you have always wanted to give and serve and help others. And one thing for certain is that you live by my favorite motto: as we know better, we do better. With that said, just know that I am so extremely proud of you for many reasons, and I love you so much.
Hey, Stan, it's your favorite sister, Cookie. No, seriously, just want to send you a message to let you know how much I appreciate you. I love you and everything that's going on, your efforts to maintain our family ties and keep us connected one way or the other is truly a blessing. as you are to us all. I am so very proud of you, and I love you so much.
Hello, everyone. This is Cornell Richards coming live from the great state of North Carolina. Just want to take a moment out and want to acknowledge my big brother, Stan Richards. When I think of Stan, I think of a great leader that has so much influence positively on so many thousands of people's lives. He's able to speak encouragement, inspiration, and help people go from a low place to a high place. Very positive, an example of overcoming, conquering all kinds of challenges, and yet keep going no matter what. So I just want to share this encouraging moment, and I just thank God for him. I love him, and I know that the grace of God is with him, and he's going to touch even more lives. In Jesus' name, bless you, Cornell Richards. Have an awesome day.
What's up, Dad? You the best father ever, and I love you.
What's up, Dad? Thank you for all your wisdom, all the love that you show us, all the graces you show us. We're extremely thankful. I'm extremely thankful. We love you. I love you.
Hey, Stan. Just wanted to say I hope you enjoyed your video messages. We just wanted to let you know how much you mean to us. Thank you for being the man of God that you are. Thank you for loving us the way that you do. Thank you for being non-negotiable in terms of your views, your beliefs, and your core values, your faith, and your love. We love you. We support you, and keep doing what you're doing.
Wow. Freaking amazing.
Amazing, man. Look,
Wow.
this is the thing. We really don't know how much we impact people until they tell us. That's how humbled you are, and that's how humble I am. Because experience for me as well, Stan, has been people will walk up to me and tell me, Dre, how much I've impacted them in their lives, how much better it is. So yes, that was special. I get filled up when I see things like that
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
just to see your sons as well and how well you're bringing them up, oftentimes see your videos, right? And yeah, and when you smacked your son, boy, that was funny. Oh my goodness! But that's the fun and love that you have with your family, and what we supposed to emulate to our sons. Exactly what a man is all about. How we take care of the family, how we take care of our queens. You know, so often our queens are left raising families by themselves. It's the unfortunate thing. And I see how much you give back to the community. So that's why I want to open up this dialogue with men, just to see, you know, just to talk about your journey, how you came to this, to where you are now, because it really does dictate who we are. And I've seen your journey.
Yeah.
So with that being said, brother, I want to open the floor up to you, Stan. Tell me about your journey from the beginning to where you are now. And then at the end, I want to talk about somebody very special to you and I. Okay.
Yeah, awesome. Well, first of all, Dre, two things, man. I wanna give honor to God for sparing our life to get here right now, because
Mm,
as well as I know, a lot of guys that we grew up with didn't make it. We just buried Kelvin Scarborough on Friday. Um, and a lot of us didn't make it, and you and I did not deserve to be here today, you know, considering all the things that we've been through and all the things that we've done, especially through the big drug epidemic back in the 80s. So I thank God. I give him all the praise, the glory, for us just being here face to face on January the 9th at 5:16 p.m. Secondly, I want to acknowledge you, man, for having the courage to follow your dreams and your passion. One of the things that I teach as a coach is whenever you're trying to do something big, you'll face what we call the terror barrier. Every time you're trying to go to that next level, And I acknowledge you today from bursting through that terror barrier, okay, to freedom where we are today. Because if you didn't burst through the terror barrier, then we wouldn't be sitting here today.
Mm-hmm.
Because Dre, we let me explain really quickly. We all start in bondage, and then we go from bondage to reasoning. But the bondage is basically what is our comfort zone. I mean, you got a great job, you got a great wife, you got a great daughter, you got a great family. So we start in our comfort zone, and then we go from bondage, our comfort zone, to what I call reasoning, which you got it in your head. You're talking about doing this podcast, for years. You've seen the vision, you believe the vision, and you're talking about it. But then, you go from bondage to reasoning. You're just talking. You ain't gonna do nothing. You was just talking for a couple of years, and then you get fed up and you say, you know what? I'm gonna go take action. So that's when you hit what I teach is called conflict. And that's when all hell is breaking out inside of you, because part of you saying, Dre, you can do this. And the other part is saying, man, why would you do that? Nobody's going to listen to it. Nobody's going to show up. So now you got what we call conflict. And you decided in that state of being, Dre, that you was going to burst through the conflict to freedom. You're going to burst through the terror barrier to freedom where we are today. Now, if you did not do that, you would go back to bondage. And you had enough courage to do that, my brother. And that excites the hell out of me, man, because here's the biggest problem with men. We don't have enough courage to burst through the terror barrier. So we go back to bondage, and we stay in bondage for years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is your freedom here, man. And I acknowledge you for having the courage to burst through this terror barrier to freedom, man. I am so freaking excited about this meeting and this dialogue that you and I are having today.
Great, brother. Because let me just say this real quick before you get on your journey. It was, I really didn't know, right? Podcast wasn't in my view. Initially, it was writing a book, about my experience, about other people's experience. So I really didn't know, but I was standing still waiting on God. One of my favorite scriptures, right? Psalm 46:10, be still, know that I'm God. And I take that to heart because sometimes we as men, right? We have knee-jerk reactions. Mm-hmm. Just what I want to do instead of thinking about it, right? Instead of thinking about it, let God come to us and say, here you are. So as I was saying, Pastor Gerald was a vessel for me because he spoke to my heart. That's when I said, here we go, right? So yes, it could be terrifying to experience something that you never experienced before. After 35 years, the authority has been my life.
Yeah.
But I was trying to create an avenue for myself, whereas I could benefit somebody else, because this is what this life is all about. It's not really about me or you. It's about what we can do for somebody else. So that's what your journey has done. So if you don't mind, brother, just tell me about your journey, the humble beginning, growing up in Brentwood, to the struggles that you had to where you are now, brother, because it was an interesting story. That's why I have you here.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Dre, I gotta give honor to my mother, who you know my mother, and
absolutely,
she raised 7 kids in a 3-bedroom apartment. And I talk about all of this in my book, From the Bus to the Bentley, No More Limits. So back in the 60s, to be a Black woman, to actually, she actually left my father because he was very abusive. That was unheard of in the 60s for a Black woman to leave the husband, right? Mm-hmm. She took 7 kids and she left my father in the 60s. And it was rough. And sometimes along the way, between the mid 60s to the mid 70s, we even had to divide up. And some of us lived here and some of us lived there. But she had the courage to take her kids out of that environment. And that's what she did. So just to fast forward, we used to move like every 6 months. Okay. And I talked about this in the book. We started out over in Southeast on W Street. Then we moved over to Quall Street and Northeast during the riots in the 60s. And then in the 70s, we moved uptown. And then by 1977, we had moved over to Brentwood. That's when we moved to Brentwood. And so from there, we had been moving so much. And I hated school with a passion because, number one, I had to transfer so many schools and I had to meet new friends all the time. And then on top of that, there was a lot of lack of money and food and things like that. So most of the times I went to school hungry, right? So because we transferred and you know, I caught the bus from Northeast that crossed down H2 bus to go to Cardozo. And I actually graduated in 1981 reading on a 6th grade level. I hated school with a passion, right? That was number two. Number one. Number two, I lacked a lot of discipline because there was no father in the home. So I was the big brother. So I pretty much did what I wanted. I wasn't a bad kid, but I lacked discipline. I was never on time. I didn't go to class. So I actually graduated from Cardozo in 1901, reading at best on a 6th grade level. From there, by God's grace and favor, I was blessed to get the job in the federal government at the FBI, right? Long story. What came with that job, Dre, was a lot of ego and arrogance because I had got my first apartment in 1981, you know, over on Carl Place in Southeast because I got me a government job. I got a couple of credit cards. Remember, I had I bought that black Celica Supra, right? I had the Woody's account. Remember that? I had the Castleberg's account. Remember, we had all those gold chains, the treasure trove. And so what came with that, Dre, was a lot of ego and arrogance. I thought I had made it out of the hood. So I started partying. We started partying. We started drugging and doing what we did back in the early 80s, because that's when the big drug epidemic happened. And we were partying at the Chapter 3. We was partying at East Side, all the clubs, you know, you and I and Tim. And so what happened with that a job was I became very, you know, egotistical and arrogant and started thinking that I had made it. And I started doing what most people did back in those days. You either sold drugs or you used drugs. And I was a user, and I started playing around with that fire. And by 84 to 87, I had got strung out on drugs, cocaine of choice. And I was what you call a functional addict, meaning that I could go to work, but all my money went into using drugs, right? True story, I'm going somewhere. So by 1987, okay, no, I'll back up. This is when I realized I was really strung out, Dre, a true story. In 86, June of 86, when Len Bias died with the overdose. I was getting high back then. And I said, God, I'm not gonna ever get high again. This stuff killed Len Bias. And 60 days later, I was putting it back up my nose.
Wow.
Right? So long story short, by 1987, I had hit rock bottom and lost everything. I lost my job. I hit rock bottom, and I cried out to God and asked him to deliver me from this addiction. And let me tell you, Gray, one of the best times of my life he did. He delivered me from the addiction. I got a job at Metro in 1989. Okay, you remember that? And I started driving the bus, and I did that for 18 long years. In the early 90s, I became a party promoter. That was another industry I was in. Did really well there for 20 years, and things began to open up for me. But what happened, Dre, those 18 years on that job, I had become institutionalized on the job, meaning that I had a great salary, I made great money, but I was in way over my head in terms of I went out and bought the biggest house, the biggest car. You know, we had to have a nice BMW smoked out off the 20s, you know, with the check engine light on. And then my car was parked at the garage more than it was parked in parked at the bus garage more than it was parked in my garage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so what happened, Dre, in 2005, I'm just fast forwarding through the story. In 2005, the light came on for me, man. And that's what December 2005, Tim was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and they gave him 4 months to live. Mm-hmm. And by God's grace, he ended up living 9 years later. Mm-hmm. But that happened, Dre, it changed my life, man, because it moved me out of my comfort zone towards the Terraberry. Mm-hmm. And that's when, I'll never forget, New Year's Eve, 2005, going into 2006, I prayed and asked God to give me some direction, to help me to change the way I was living. I was making great money, don't get me wrong, mm-hmm. but I was institutionalized on my job. Mm-hmm. I was working 80 to 100 hours a week, 7 days a week, okay, to pay for a house. I was house broke, true mm-hmm. story. Mm-hmm. I had no time for my wife, no time for my young kids. And mm-hmm. I had just come out of a divorce, and then this was my second marriage. Mm-hmm. And I prayed and asked God to give me an opportunity. And so what happened was I embarked from there, because of Tim getting sick, changed my life. I embarked on entrepreneurship, and the rest is history. From there, I got in community with a lot of mentors. I began to grow myself personally. Okay, by 2011, I had wrote my book, From the Bus to the Bentley. I launched the Richards Group Foundation. In 2013, I was blessed to win a Hoodie Awards with Steve Harvey. Mm-hmm. 13, 14, and 15, I was nominated. I didn't win in 2015. So I went on to do some amazing things, right? And to where I'm at now. Here's what I'll share with you, Dre, the beauty of this. That I have been blessed to make millions of dollars and change my life. The beauty of this, Dre, it was because my brother Tim, from the time that he was diagnosed until he passed away in September 2014, I was blessed because I got outside of my comfort zone to help my brother, number one, but then to also be able to travel the world with my brother. Mm-hmm. So the time when he went home to be with the Lord, we both was at peace. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We had more fun in those 9 years than we had in 40 some years, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm so grateful. But then number two, I was blessed, like you said earlier, because I had made a lot of money. I've driven Bentleys, Range Rovers, traveled the world. And then I realized you only can eat a steak so many ways. All that shit gets old. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The only thing that matters is what you give back. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So for me, now I get it. I have to take my gifts and talents and pour it back into the next man and pour it back into the community. That's why I go back to Brentwood. I have adopted my community for life to pour back into those at-risk kids and teach those kids that they can go from their bus to their Bentley. Mm-hmm. And mm-hmm. that's more gratifying than driving any Bentley, than eating any steak, and laying on any beach of the world, right? So I'm excited, man, because everything is about awareness. Everything that we ever want is right here inside of us. Once we become aware of what we want,
Mm-hmm.
What's most important, and at the end of the day, is to give back to our community and give back to another man.
Absolutely.
So that's why I'm excited.
Absolutely. But I think you hit the nail on the head when you said Tim being diagnosed changed the trajectory of your life. The unfortunate thing is that sometimes that's what we need, something to change our lives. Sometimes we experience or we see something that will change our life, right? So yes, I wanted to touch on that because he was my best friend. When Tim passed away, took part of me with him for sure. He was one of those guys that I can call anytime. And he and I mean, it could be 6 months, it could be a year later, we didn't have any contact. But when we talked that day, we caught up for that 6 months and that 1 year. And we never said to each other, man, why you ain't call me? Where you been? The first thing we would say is, how you doing, brother? I love you. And we would cry on the phone, we would pray on the phone, and we would laugh until our hearts desired. You understand me? Um, so when Tim passed away, I explained that when I spoke about him because it meant volumes to me. And most people really don't know what friendship is really about. It's not about how many times you go out together. It's not about how many times you talk on the phone. It's about that friend being there for you when you need them.
Right.
And the unfortunate thing is that we really do discover who our friends are when we go through our journey. So I really appreciate you coming on, man, because I see the impact that you're making on the community. And from this day forth, I am I will be donating each year to the 1335 project because that's an area I grew up in as well. You know that.
Right.
They called my dad. And look, and one thing about your mom, and you had some deaths in your family for sure. Your mom, it was devastating. Tim, devastating. And then recently, Papoose,
Yeah.
Renee, devastating. That also bring awareness to us that we have a short time here on earth. What can we do while we're here to help each other out? And we as men, the unfortunate thing is men have been abandoning their families. The kids really can't see what a man is really about if he's not there. Even when he is there, he can't be mentally not there for the kid. We really have to go in and show our kids what it's like to be a man. Now, do we expect them to take it into their marriage? No, develop your own marriage, but take some of the core values that we teach you into your marriage. Sometimes you can extract some good things, sometimes you extract some bad things, but you have to determine, the kid have to determine the good and bad thing and what worked for their family, not take my marriage or your marriage into their marriage.
Right.
Yeah. So, but no, man, much love to you, brother. Continue to do what you do. I got your back. I know you got my back because you have always been there for me. One thing about it is that when you was promoting the Black Man Coalition, let me just say this: that was one of the best parties we ever had in the DMV, and I know a lot of people still miss that because that was a party that it was grown for grown folks.
Yeah.
We would go there. I've never seen a fight. I've never seen an altercation. We would go there, have fun, and share the love for sure. So I want to thank you, man, for just coming on. And before we depart, Stan, I have something I want to read to you because it speaks volumes to me all the time. And I've been reading a book from Tony Evans, The Kingdom Man. I don't know if you read it or not, right? Every man's destiny, every woman's dream. God's greatness was demonstrated clearly through his son, who did not come to serve, but do not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life a ransom for many. Matthew 20:28. In other words, your greatness ought to be making lives your sphere, with within your sphere of influence better, not worse. Your greatness ought to inspire other men because they see your impact for good in the lives of others. And that's so true because it's going to be us who impact the lives of others. And I wanted to start it here. And with our conversation, I would like to eventually branch out because of this pandemic. Of course, you're not doing it Zoom because you and I would normally be face to face. I would like to branch out and open up this podcast. Rent me a spot or own me a spot to invite other panelists so we can do it live face to face. This right here is sufficient, but it's nothing like seeing a brother sitting across from me and dialoguing. So I want to thank you, man, for joining me, Stan. It's been a great conversation, brother. And I appreciate you and I love you. I want you to stay on right after this because I have something to chop up with you about.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Dre.
All right, Stan. Thank you so much, brother.